Welcome to another episode of Teen Minds Redefined, where we redefine our relationships with our teens, where we allow them to grow into these authentic human beings. We're not just raising children, we're raising human beings. And we want to send them off in this world as authentic, true to themselves, secure, healthy, happy teenagers. And we have a beautiful guest today. Her name is Vanessa Cardenas. And Vanessa, let's see, how do you turn the darkest moments of betrayal into a beacon of hope and personal growth? And Vanessa is going to tell us all about that today. And I find it so interesting and how you have just taken something when I first heard the words out of your mouth when you were talking in one of our communities. And I thought, oh, that would just be, but look at you turning just some darkness and despair into, like, you just like watered a garden of flowers. So welcome, Vanessa. I'm so happy to have you here.
No, it's such an honor to be here. What an amazing topic, and so poignant in today's society and what we're doing, and how we do need to every once in a while look around us and realize that there are others in a different generation that are watching us very closely because they're learning from us.
Yes.
And while we think they might not be, oh boy, they are. They absolutely are.
And they may not be listening to us, but they're certainly watching us, teens of ours.
Yes. And that's why we have generational situations where patterns repeat from generation to generation, because we don't take the time to actually heal from something that has happened within our life. And we carry it on, we pass it on to our children, just solely based by the way that we handle the situation. And we do it one of two ways. We either completely repeat the pattern, or we do a complete 180 and go the complete opposite direction.
Yeah.
But it still has that impact on the family.
Yeah. Just because you go in the opposite direction doesn't mean you've healed anything. Yeah, that's such a good point. Okay, Vanessa, let's tell us about you first. I want to hear your story, and then we're just going to dive right in, but I want the audience to hear who you are.
Who I am is, I am somebody that was addicted to certainty. I thought for sure that if I checked off all the right boxes, I went to the right high school, I studied really hard, I got good grades, I went into college, I got my college degree in psychology, I married my high school sweetheart, the house, the white picket fence, the cars, the 2 children. I was inoculated from anything terrible happening to me. I truly thought that way. I had climbed up the corporate ladder. I was in the C-suite. I had what I thought was the perfect life for me. I was happy. I was content. And then one day in Central Park, because I'm in New York City, my husband and I are walking through, and he sits me down on a bench and he says, Vanessa, there's something I need to tell you. And I'm people watching, and I'm so into what's going on around us because the city is just so vibrant. And I turn to look at him, and I look at the most beautiful chestnut brown eyes, the same chestnut brown eyes in high school that I fell in love with madly, passionately, fully. And right at that moment, I thought to myself, wow, I still love him. I love him so much. A millisecond later, things had changed, because he said 3 words to me that I never, ever thought I would hear him say. I've met someone.
Oh my God.
What? And I fell apart. I completely fell apart. I raged. I immediately saw a movie in my head of what my life was going to be like from that moment forward. He was going to go off and marry the most beautiful woman on the planet, and kids and house and cars and all of that for her. And I was just going to be alone. And it was gut-wrenching for me. I shattered into a zillion pieces. We came home because we were in the city and we live about 40 minutes outside of the city, which makes for a very interesting car ride.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. How we didn't get into a car accident, I have no idea. But we came home, and regrettably, my teenage daughter was home. And I did all the wrong things. I did absolutely all the wrong things. I came in raging. I pointed my finger at him and I go, tell her, go ahead, tell her what you did. I was so angry and I wasn't prepared for the unloading that my husband did on my daughter. He did not want to tell her. Let me get that straight. He did not want. We'll talk to her as a couple when you've calmed down. And I'm raging. And I'm like, you have to tell her, because I felt the need to have her on my side. Like, she needed to understand my point of view. I never really put her feelings into play. But once she heard that and she saw me freaking out, she immediately thought my parents were getting divorced. And she withdrew and went off to get consoled by her friends. I was useless as a mother at that particular moment in time. My husband was as well as a father. We just didn't know how to process this bombshell that just exploded in our family. And what happened was, my husband and I spent the whole night, 24 hours up, talking about the situation. What are we going to do? How are we going to handle this? Whatnot? Because I was resistant. You did this. You know, here are my rings. We're separating. That's it. Yes, we're going to chalk up the 20 years that we've been married, plus the 10 years we knew each other before that.
Yeah.
It's gone. It's over. It's done with. And my husband did not accept that. He was not willing to accept that. He said, we have to work on this for the sake of ourselves, for our family, for everyone around us. We need to work on this. I am not just going to let you go. We have to work on this. In my particular case, I got lucky with that, because in a lot of instances, and now that I work with couples and I work with women and I work with men, it's really a severe separation. It's not a speed bump. It's not a stop sign. It's a brick wall that your relationship hits. And what I found out through the whole process was the reason that it hit me so hard. You have to keep in mind, I'm a smart woman. I have a psychology degree. I should be handling this so much better. Why am I, in essence, completely freaking out? Why am I being the most outrageous Karen you've ever witnessed? That's because I had had all of these micro betrayals throughout my life. These little betrayals that start as early as you can remember, that never quite healed. Perfect example, if I may.
Yeah.
I was best friends with Annie. Annie was my best friend in first grade. Me and Annie, we were peas and carrots. And then one day, Annie turns her back to me. I'm not your friend anymore. I'm friends with Mary now. What? I was so hurt. And I went home in tears because she wasn't my friend anymore. What was wrong with me? That she wouldn't be my friend anymore. And when I came home and expressed this to my mother, now keep in mind, I was born to terrified teenage parents that really had no license to be a parent. My mother said to me, just very flippant, "Oh, you'll make other friends." And she just dismissed my feelings. And I had to swallow my feelings and put on my big girl panties and just watch my best friend become best friends with someone else.
Oh my God.
That's a micro betrayal.
Yeah.
It's huge at the time, and then as you get older, it becomes this little micro betrayal. But what happens is all these little micro betrayals, they're all there. They're right under the surface. And when you have a catastrophic betrayal, such as I've met someone, and in essence, your heart is ripped out of your chest, dumped on, all those little micro betrayals, oh, they start quaking. They start rising to the surface because they want to be handled as well. They want to remind you because your inner critic comes out full force. And there's something wrong with you. See what you did? It's happening all over again. You deserve this. Ooh.
Oh my gosh.
Yes. And you start to hear all of those ways in which the adults in your life when you were a child minimized your feelings.
Yeah.
Another example I have of this, because I'm of a certain generation and my grandparents were of a different generation. My grandparents went through the war. They had lots of war stories that they talked about. But anything that I experienced that I felt was really challenging or very difficult, they minimized by saying, well, that's nothing. I went through the war.
Oh God.
And when you're minimized over and over and over again as a child, that sticks with you. I'm over 50 years old and I can still remember every single moment that my grandfather, that I would come to him with tears in my eyes because my doll broke or something happened that was at the moment in time, based on my age, was traumatic to me. He would minimize it and just say, that's nothing. At least you have a doll. So I would always hear at least. At least you have food on the table. At least you have clothing. At least you have this. At least you have that. So again, we go back to the day in Central Park. Everything rose to the top. And all of it did. And I was a mess. I was truly, truly a mess. And it really wasn't until months later, because I thought for sure I could fix myself. I had a psychology degree. Why couldn't I fix myself? I had mentored and coached over 500 employees as a C-suite executive. This, no. I couldn't do it to myself, let alone I want to fix him. I can't fix him either. And it wasn't until I actually asked for help. I finally succumbed and said, I need help. And I searched out all the gurus. I had the most amazing experience that one of the gurus that I discovered and I worked with one-on-one, and then eventually I joined her group, was that within group, I became an unofficial sponsor to all the other people within the group. And she pulled me aside one day and said, Vanessa, you're really good at this. You just have such empathy and compassion. And I think you should do this. So now I didn't think she was talking to me. I'm like, are you me? And she's like, yes, you. I'd like to sponsor you. I would like for me to sponsor you to get all of the training that you need. You to be a betrayal recovery specialist so that you can start helping others that experienced exactly what you experienced, that overwhelming avalanche feelings that you didn't know how to process, you didn't know how to take care of, and just really struggled with. And now I get to help others. And it's so rewarding. It's absolutely amazing for me. And a lot of it has to do with the family dynamics and how we have a relationship that our children watch. Because in my particular case, both my children watched the fallout, the aftermath, which was just gut-wrenching. I mean, I have a son and a daughter, and they both processed it very differently. My son, who lived with us, though he was older, he lived with us, still a teenager, ghosted his father, saw right through him, looked right through him, protected me, sided with me, and he looked right through my husband as if my husband was not there for 6 months.
My God.
And my husband took it because he knew that what the actions that had happened were his own, and he took ownership of that.
Okay.
My daughter, on the other hand, tried to play both ends, because we know that teenagers do that. They do play both ends. Well, mom said I could go to the party, and dad said, and they're bouncing us back and forth off each other, because she's recognizing we're in the midst of some sort of argument about something. So one of us will say, just to get her to leave the situation.
Yeah.
And she'll get what she wants.
Interesting.
Yeah, our teenagers are smart.
Yeah. No doubt there.
Oh, yeah. And I found it very interesting because during the aftermath of the betrayal, my husband and I decided that we were going to keep it close to the chest. We did not share it with anyone else. Our children knew about it. My parents, his parents, in-laws, family, friends, nobody knew about it. Wow. It only came out when, in essence, I came out. Because it was the best kept secret in New York. I was helping clients kind of, not on social media, just referrals, word of mouth and whatnot. And it wasn't until somebody approached me and said, listen, you're being really selfish. And I was like, I'm being selfish? I'm helping so many clients. And they're like, you're being selfish. You need to get out there. You need to be on stage, on podcasts. You need to write a book. You need to go big, because your message and what you do and what you stand for and how you were able to get through betrayal and stay married. We're going to celebrate 33 years.
Wow. Well, congratulations on that.
And so I came out. So suddenly friends and family knew about it, and they were like, wait a second, this was going on? Yeah, it was going on. It was going on. Unfortunately, I feel the ripple effect on our children. My daughter got involved with a young man, a wonderful young man, and I see their interaction, and I see her stand up for herself, and I see her not take any crap, and she's very empowered by the experience. She tells me, on the side, she goes, Mom, I give you a lot of credit. I'm not doing that. I'm not going to tolerate that. It doesn't matter how many years I haven't done.
Wow.
I know the red flags. I know what to look for.
Yeah.
But in hindsight, there were a couple of things, little things here and there that kind of made me feel uncomfortable. But I was like, well, if it doesn't bother Mom, it doesn't bother me, and whatnot. And my son, in hearing about his father, subsequently hearing about his grandfather and his great-grandfather and his great-great-father.
Okay.
Generational thing that kind of happens as well. He wants to break that generation. He wants it to absolutely stop with him.
Yeah.
So he's committed to that. And I see that interaction with him and his long-term girlfriend that he's had for quite a while, on how he treats her and respects her, and is very transparent and is very forthright in how he feels. He's expressing himself.
Yeah.
Golden. So this disastrous, devastating event that happened in my life, I always smile right before I say this. I'm better for the experience. It was gut-wrenching to go through. I don't advocate it for anybody to go through. Yeah. Please don't go through it. Please, please, please don't go through it. But when you go through an experience like this, the first thing, and this was something that someone said to me early on, and I dismissed it. I did not want to hear it. That no. Though something terrible has happened to you, it wasn't about you. It wasn't about you. Yeah. And initially I was like, oh, it's got to be about me. I must have done something wrong. I was not enough. I'm too much. because I got a lot of energy in case you haven't noticed.
No.
Yeah. No, not at all. But it's that type of thing, because initially we take on all that weight of that betrayal. We take on all that shame and that guilt of that betrayal. We feel like it's something that we did or didn't do.
Mm-hmm.
And once we learn that though it was done to us, it wasn't about us, that becomes powerful. And that's something that I try very hard to instill with my daughter, with my son, with their friends, because because of social media and they're warriors with their thumbs, they take everything so personally when it happens on social media. When somebody disagrees with something that they said, they can have 100 comments that like their post and love their post.
Yes.
Right on. But one person has to say something that debates it, and they will not let that go.
Yep.
Not let that go. And suddenly they're in a match with their thumbs. They're going back and forth. We as kids used to have, the thumb wrestles.
Yep.
Well, now we're doing it with a device in our hands.
Yeah, good point.
We're going to town with their thumbs because they feel that they can say anything.
Yeah. I thank you for sharing all of that. And I honestly, I did a ton of what I thought was research, but did not know the end game with you. I didn't know you stayed married. Looking at your website, and from when we met, that's just not amazes me in a bad way. I'm just like, wow, okay. So what strikes me, I just want to go back to the interaction at the beginning of this is, your reaction when you said you raged and, really felt badly that you didn't react well. However, I find that when two people are in a different place in their relationship, the one person who has met someone has gone through all the stages of grief and separation before they say to you, this is over, or this is done, or I've met someone, where you had the 7 stages in 1 second. Like, so there's, I don't know anyone who would have reacted any differently at all. So there's that. And then I'm thinking, so best case scenario, and I don't think you did anything wrong because of just exactly for that reason. I think anyone would have reacted. However, if you were to say, man, I really wish I had have just when you walked in the door and your daughter was home and your son, what would you have thought would be the best case scenario? What would you have said? What would you have done differently?
I would have gone completely the other way, because when you're in that state, it's usually one of only 2 reactions. One, you rage.
Yeah.
Or you turtle.
Yes.
I would have liked to have turtled. I would have liked to have gone within and just, okay, let me process what's going on. Let me feel all of this. Let me close myself off from everyone else. But because of all those micro betrayals screaming at me and whatnot, I wanted a team around me to say, you're at fault. This is your fault. You've done this and that. And just been able to explain my behavior. I'm raging, but I have a reason to. I'm angry. But I didn't see it from my daughter's point of view. I didn't really see it from my son's point of view either.
Yeah. How could you? You're blind? To me, that just sounds like blind rage. You couldn't have.
Correct.
Yeah.
It made it very, very challenging, because my husband and I decided we're going to try to work on this.
Yeah.
We're going to try to work on this. We're going to attempt to, I don't like the word fix. We're going to attempt to rebuild our relationship back to the intoxication it was when we were kids.
Yeah.
My daughter and son had they were very challenged in school because my husband and I met in school. So they felt that they're going to find their one in school. So when my son graduated high school and he hadn't found the one yet, it was kind of this defeatist situation that he had going on. He's like, okay, I'm going to be alone forever. And it's this absolution. And it's like, no, that's not the case. You don't have to emulate us. And he's like, well, wait a second. Your parents met in school, granted they became teenage parents, and then he looked at my husband and he goes, well, same thing with you. You were born to teenage parents as well. So they both met in high school. And I'm like, it's okay. You don't have to get a girl pregnant.
Yeah. Rather, you didn't. Thanks.
Kind of thing and whatnot. And the same thing for my daughter. My daughter felt that pressure of, oh my gosh, I have to find the one in school. And didn't either. But they both, they both ended up with some really, really good people in their corners, which I'm very, very grateful for. And now that they have seen the betrayal, their relationships are more solid because of that, because they went through that experience with us. I would have preferred that day to turtle. I would have preferred to respond rather than react.
Yeah. I hear you. And, at least this conversation, if we have a listener who has not experienced this yet, and then in the future does, hopefully your words will trigger just turtle for now. So I'd love to know, can you give, if parents are going through this now, whether together, not together, but they have teenagers, I speak the teenage language, nothing much younger. So teenagers, can you give some kind of advice? What are the next steps if they're in the middle of this turmoil? How do they navigate this? What do they do?
Transparency, lots of transparency, a lot of talking about, we're working on this. We're working with a professional on this. We're working with a coach on this. We're working on this. We're trying our best. We might not be there yet. Yet is such a powerful word that we do not use enough of, because yet means possibility.
Yes.
We're not healed yet, but we will be. We are not there yet, but we will be. It is involving your children as much as you can. There are certain things that they don't necessarily need to know. But with that being said, you want to be transparent with them. You want to let them know, because there's so much uncertainty. There's so much, and we as a society, we don't like uncertainty. We don't.
Well,
we like certainty. We become addicted to certainty. So you want to reassure your teenagers, we're working through this. We're going to work through this, and week by week, incrementally. It's not going to happen overnight. Nothing happens overnight. You can't do 600 sit-ups and the very next day have a six-pack. Work that way, but incrementally, we're making progress step by step by step. And we appreciate your help. We appreciate your involvement to a point, because this is still our relationship.
Yes.
After you move out, after you go out onto your own with your own relationship, we're still left here. There's something called empty nest. So with that being said, we want to work on our relationship, and that's what we're doing, because sometimes relationships ebb and flow. They just do. And you have pivotal moments in your relationship where the dynamics change and things change and circumstances change. This betrayal is a bombshell. But we have to decide, is it a speed bump? Is it a stop sign? Or is it that brick wall that you can't get past and you need to move in a different direction? Keep your children in the loop. We're not looking to divorce. We're looking to make this work.
Mm-hmm.
We're looking to figure out how to amicably separate.
Mm-hmm.
It's a lot of dynamics moving in pieces.
Yeah.
And for parents, I strongly suggest that you communicate with school and you let school, especially teachers, know what,
Yes. My God,
because
yes.
what they're not showing you at home, they're going to be showing at school.
Yes, 100%.
You need to make sure that you are communicating with the teachers. Listen, our family is going through something.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to disclose it. You don't need to disclose it, but just to indicate our family's going through something at home. We're working on it. We have counseling, we have therapists, we have coaches, whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
We're working through it, but I just want you to be aware in case Junior acts out in class or is distracted or something is going on in behavior. I want you to be aware of it.
Yeah, that's such good advice.
He's not displaying it at home.
Yeah.
But he might be displaying it here.
Yeah.
The other thing to be very mindful for, especially with our daughters, the saying is daddy's little girl.
Mm-hmm.
Okay?
Yep.
We have that saying for a reason. But when a daughter looks at her father differently, it not only cuts her, it cuts the father as well.
Mm-hmm.
They really, really feel that.
Yeah.
And we need, as parents, to recognize that dynamic. And we need to make sure that we do all that we can to salvage that relationship as well.
Yeah.
Because of social media and because of all those feelings that our teenagers feel and have a hard time processing, we don't want her looking for a different father figure.
Mm-hmm.
Because she then becomes very vulnerable.
Yep.
We don't want that for our daughters.
No. That's really good. That's really good. And I think a big part of maybe your success is I'm divorced. So I know hindsight in the sense that I didn't tell a whole lot of people at the start either. And I feel like because you didn't do that, because you kept things close to your chest, it meant that all these people aren't making these judgments and forming opinions. And then there's this wall of I'm on her side and I'm on his side. And then you have to break through that when you decide, yes, this is going to work. This is great. We can do this. So I think that's, when people start to separate or something like this happens, can I say, find your own people, find your own sounding board, but don't make it your friends or your parents or your siblings until it's done and in the bag and everything's whatever it is settled. But in the meantime, in that turmoil, I feel like that was probably a really great strategy that you had to just say, let's keep it here. We're going to work it out. Therapy, whatever, is elsewhere. But I think that's such good decision making there. Yeah. So we know betrayal doesn't always happen in a marriage. So I just want to touch on, if a parent is starting to get some kind of clue that their teenager, college kid, whatever, is in a relationship and there could be some clues about that betrayal on their behalf, betrayal on their boyfriend or girlfriend's behalf, what would we look for and how would we have that conversation with our kids?
Powerful. First thing we want to notice is change in behavior. Absolutely. And you know your child best, and you'll see it all over their face. I know that kids think they have a poker face, but they do not.
No.
They do not. And you need to pick at it very carefully. You also need to let them know that you're there, that you're available, that you understand. And that if it's not you that they want to talk to, that they have another trusted family member that they can speak to.
Yeah.
They have to have someone to talk to. And if they're on a college campus, kind of reach out to the dean and say, I noticed a little change in behavior. I've noticed a little bit of a change. I'm a little concerned. But as a parent, I can't come into my child's face and be like, what's going on?
Yeah.
But sometimes you can kind of skirt around it a little bit. You can kind of get wind of it that way.
Mm-hmm.
Depends on the language that they start to use. Yeah. If they start to use language around, I felt invalidated.
Okay.
Um, Something along the lines of, I guess it just wasn't for me. I'm not enough. I'm not enough for them. Mm. Ears perk up. Ears
Yeah.
perk up a lot. You want to listen carefully, not listen passively. You want to listen with intention to pick up on those certain words said, because they're very telling. Because our teenagers, unless you have a different type of relationship, but for the most part, our teenagers keep everything very close to their chest, and they'll share it with their friends. They don't necessarily share it with you. And it's driving in the car and you talk as if you're talking passively, but you talk with intention. Oh, I just want to make sure that you know that you can always chat with me. I'd really like not to find out things from Facebook or from Snapchat or from Aunt so-and-so or from your friend who has that or one of these other socials and whatnot. I hope that you know that you can always talk to me. Or what my husband and I do, I'm going to share this with you in hopes that my children never hear this. My husband and I have a really good tactic because we know that our children are listening. Even though we think that we think and they come off as not listening, they're listening. They're actually listening. So my children will be on their phones, at the dinner table. No, I don't like that, but that's okay. That's what they do now. Once they became adults and they became 18 years old, I'm an adult. And phones made their way to the table. My husband and I don't do phones on the table at all. And we'll have a conversation. And if I want my daughter or son to specifically do something, I can't ask them directly. But if I mention to my husband, so-and-so's son applied for a job at X, Y, and Z company. He wasn't qualified to do it. But, it was interesting that he was able to apply for that job. He found it on Indeed, and this and that. And it was a this, thing and whatnot. I bet you, I know it. My son over in the corner of the table, he's typing in Indeed. He's typing in the job title, looking at it. But if I told him directly, oh, there's a job on Indeed, you should apply for it. Resistance, resistance.
Yeah.
But my husband and I will talk about other people and what their kids are doing. Suddenly the ears perk up on the other side of the table. And it's like, oh, Mary's daughter is doing X, Y, and Z. Or I'll say, oh, I saw something on Facebook about X, Y, and Z. Did you see that on Facebook? I thought that was really interesting. And we'll talk amongst ourselves with the intention we want our kids to hear it.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh my goodness.
Sometimes we have to go around, get right to the point.
Yeah.
And that's okay. Sometimes we have to circle that drain. The most important thing is that we get our message across.
Yeah.
Because our teenagers are listening, they're watching, they're seeing, but they don't want to admit it.
Yeah.
Because they know everything.
Of course. That goes without saying. Okay. You know what? I think before we wrap up, I want to ask one more thing. I want to ask about the healing process. So let's turn the tables. And our kids have gone through some kind of betrayal, not necessarily a boyfriend, their best friend, as your story, someone at work, even somebody on Facebook, whatever. What are 2 or 3 things that we can say or do or help rebuild in their healing process of being betrayed?
Well, we're talking about self-betrayal. Let's talk about self-betrayal and that inner critic. That inner critic's really loud. We need to tap that down. We need to, in essence, have a conversation with ourselves because we're suddenly in an abusive relationship. with ourselves.
Mhm.
We need to fight back. When we hear that nasty chick voice or that dominant male voice talking to us in a way that we would never allow anybody else to talk to us, we need to tap it down. Hey, I've got this. Because it does two things. One, it allows us to recognize that our inner critic is talking to us. It's not our intuition, it's not our gut.
Yes.
It is our inner critic. And we need to tell her or him, enough. I got this. I got this. We also need to remind ourselves of our accomplishments, what we have done, quote, right, what we are most proud of. And sometimes I suggest to my clients, write it down. Write down everything that you have ever done. I got an A on this paper. I was in the choir. I this and that. I got my driver's license the day after I turned 16. Whatever accomplishments you have, write them down. And when you feel that low point, take out that sheet of paper. Let me rephrase that. Take out those sheets of paper.
Yeah, good.
And read through them. You'll be surprised how many things you forget at that exact moment when you're feeling down, because both voices are screaming at you. Counteract that. You know what? I've got a list of all my accomplishments. This is great. And every single week, add to that list, because there is something special and unique that you have done. You have to win. Write down that win, because we so easily forget our wins because we focus on what was hard, what was difficult, what was challenging, what we didn't, quote, do right.
So true. So true. Oh, Vanessa, I feel like I could talk all day because I have 18 other questions, but I'm going to, maybe we'll do a sequel. So tell us how we can work with you, where we can find you, all the good stuff that we can put in the show notes, please.
I love it. Where you can find me is definitely on my website. My website has an interesting little story backed for it as well. I love Stephen King, the author Stephen King. And in high school, when I was in high school, I read every single book of his. There was one book in particular that I absolutely loved. I took it out from the library and I did something sacrilegious.
Uh-oh.
I tore a page out. Yes, I know. I tore a page out, but it meant so much to me. And 30 years later, I still have that page.
Wow. Okay.
I carried it around because it meant so much to me. And it was a quote, and it's a long quote. I condensed it. The most important things to say are the hardest things to say. They're locked within, not for the want of a teller, but for the want of an understanding ear. So when I got pushed into social media and not to be selfish and get my message out there, I, of course, needed a website. Well, I wanted a URL that meant something to me. I could have used my name, and yes, I have the domain name for my name with a hyphen, Vanessa-Cardenas.com. But you know, it's me, but it just didn't feel like me. So I wanted understanding ear, because that's what I have an understanding ear. And I thought for sure, because I'm late to the game, I'm going to have to wrestle that name away from somebody. Turns out it was free. It was there. It was there. It was
amazing.
There. So it was meant for me. So you can find me on understandingear.com. That's where I have everything that I do, all of my appearances, my books. And my second book is Dealing with the Devastation of Your Partner's Betrayal. How to talk to your kids, your parents, your friends, and your family. So I've written the book on it.
Fantastic.
And that's over on Amazon. So thank you so much for that. This has been absolutely great. I actually look forward to a sequel.
Yeah, me too, because I think there's so many different ways we could go with this when it comes to betrayal. And I'm sorry that you went through this initially. However, I'm grateful that you are sharing this, because it could really change some relationships and some reactions and some responses. And congratulations on your anniversary. And I just think that that might not be everybody's answer, but it's yours, and that's wonderful. So
Yeah.
thank you, Vanessa. I'm so grateful you're here. I'm so grateful that you are sharing your work, your story with us. And yeah, we'll talk again. We'll talk again.
I look forward to it.
Thank you for listening to Teen Minds Redefined, and we'll catch you later.